Hey everyone, it's Michael GoosebumpsFan. Today I'm going to be talking about another Goosebumps episode review. I just read Say Cheese and Die from the old classic 90s book series from R.L. Stine, and I loved it. The book was amazing. It was so good. I highly recommend it if you haven't read it before. I don't know about the sequel books. I'm currently in the second one right now, Say Cheese and Die Screaming Again. But I tell you, the first book was incredible. It was so dark. One of the darkest Goosebumps books I've ever read in my life, whether it be for kids or adults or anything. It was so creepy and just so worrisome and just a scary story. Just a really crazy, wild Twilight Zone type of story. It was great. I highly recommend it, like I said. This episode adaptation came out on Season 1, Episode 15. It is February 9th, 1996 when it was released. It's about a 20-minute long episode. It's not like a two-parter type of thing. It's also directed by Ron Oliver, who did quite a few things. I think he did, like, Welcome to Camp Nightmare. I think he did Attack of the Mutant. A lot of different things out there. Cry of the Cat, I know he did that. Perfect School, which is... Ugh. Ron Oliver did a pretty good job with this episode, I think. I saw this one time, not even like 3 years ago. I haven't seen this before that moment. I haven't read the book before that moment as far as I know. And Say Cheese and Die is a pretty good episode. I like it a lot. I watched it on this bootleg thing I accidentally bought. I was tricked into buying. Season 1 and Season 2 are in this box set here. I have Season 3 and Season 4 in pretty much an identical pack, but I decided to watch some of the episodes I come up... Let me try this again. Any books that I read from the classic series that have episode adaptations, I'm going to start watching it out of here because it is the entire series, but I want to keep testing the quality of the episodes and see what they look like. This one looked pretty good, I think. Anyway, Say Cheese and Die stars a very famous face that many of you know and I love tremendously. It's one of my favorite actors of all time, Ryan Gosling. Ryan Gosling was in everything from The Notebook to Goosebumps to he directed and I think also wrote Lost River, which is one of my favorite art house films ever made. It's so crazy, has one of the best casting choices ever, has some of the best music I've ever seen in film ever. Ryan Gosling is immensely talented. I love The Notebook. I love Say Cheese and Die. I love all the stuff that this dude does. My favorite performance of his, though, is in Drive, when he plays Driver. If you haven't seen Drive, the Nicholas-Winding Refn sort of semi-action art house type of movie, it's kind of like it's kind of like Refn's own Taxi Driver, excuse me. I cannot talk tonight. It's just one of those weeks every time I get off from work, I just can't talk at night. I don't even talk during the day. Why am I like that? Drive is the name of the film. I think it came out in like 2011, I believe. It's amazing. If you haven't seen it, you're really missing out on how great that movie is. But Ryan Gosling stars as our main character, Greg Banks, and he is pretty solid here. I actually like his performance here. He's one of the better kid actors that Goosebumps had on the show. I think he also did an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Because he's Canadian, and he did both shows. Pretty much every actor or actress, like Hayden Christensen, did both. Anyone that you can put a face on, they've pretty much done that. But nobody seems to talk about the other casting choice in here that I was completely shocked to see in here. Scott Speedman. He played the officer in the episode. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the two cops that come to the door to Greg's house when they're looking for somebody. Scott Speedman plays in this. And Scott Speedman, I'll show you some of the names of different things he's been in here. He played Michael in Underworld. If you've seen Underworld, I like Underworld. At least the first 3, quite a bit. I haven't seen 4. I saw 5 and it was awful. It was really awful. But he plays Michael. He was in The Strangers as the main male lead, aside from, what's her face? The girl from Incredible Hulk. He was in a bunch of stuff, dude. I really was surprised to see him here. He's a good actor. Really, Scott Speedman and Ryan Gosling in the same Goosebumps episode. Nobody wants to talk about that. Anyway, this is a really good episode. It's so 1990s. It's one of those things like Attack of the Mutant, the two-parter episode from Goosebumps. If you've seen that, you know how 1990s a lot of Goosebumps can be, and this feels like a 1990s thing. There's the chase scene when Greg and Bird are running away from 2 of the bullies, and they're playing this like loud, jamming, electric guitar type stuff. It just gives you some tingles, man. Really great stuff. For anybody who doesn't know the story of Say Cheese and Die, it's kind of a Twilight Zone thing, like I said. Pretty much 2 boys and a friend named Sherry. Greg is our main character, Bird is the other guy. They sneak into an abandoned building called the Kaufman House. I don't know if in the episode they actually called it the Kaufman House. I don't remember. I just watched it like 30 minutes ago and I don't remember. I gotta be honest with you, I don't. But they sneak into this abandoned house where there's kind of like a homeless man named Spidey that's kind of wandering around this place and pretty much takes acquaintance inside of this place a lot of the time. And they see him sneak out. Spidey's this weird homeless man with long gray hair. He kind of looks like Brad Dourif with a wig on. He wears these big black goggles on. I don't know why anybody thought that was scary for Goosebumps, but it is. Not really scary, but it's there. I mean, so Brad Dourif, Spidey guy, leaves, and they all sneak inside of the building to just kind of wander around, see what he lives like, and see what the abandoned house is like inside of the building. And they get down to the basement of the area, and they find, apparently Bird messes with something on the bench. I don't think it was a vice, like in the actual book. I think it was something else. He just moved nearby, and a whole hatchet of a door opened up on side of a dresser or something. And there's this weird looking thing. It looks like something the mutant himself from Attack of the Mutant would have used. It's very odd, very huge plastic, just cumbersome monstrosity made of plastic and a couple of beeping lights. Yes, I said beeping lights. That's what it's like in the 1990s. It's supposed to be a camera, and whereas in the book it's just a straight up like Polaroid type of camera. I guess they had to kind of, for name brand's sake, stay away from that, not use Polaroid's name, so they used something else, even though the book didn't call it a Polaroid either. They had to use its own thing, and of course it's one of those cameras like Polaroid that when you take a photo, the little snapshot thing shoots out of the end, and you wait a couple of seconds and it dries out or whatever, develops itself, and there you go, you're able to see the picture that you took. Well, for some reason, this particular camera, when you take pictures of it, for example, Greg takes a picture of his friend Bird on the stairs, and in the photo itself, the side railing of the stairs busted out, and Bird fell off the top of the stairs and almost died. In the book, he broke his ankle. In this, he just kind of fell off the side. Yeah. He falls. So apparently this camera predicts the potential future of what could happen to somebody, or probably what will happen to somebody. But Greg can't really find out if it's the camera causing these things to happen to people, or if it's just it predicting things that will happen to people eventually. It's a very interesting concept, not entirely explored in other areas that I've seen this type of concept done. It's one of those stories like Monster Blood and The Blob and that kind of thing that have been done a billion times over. Polaroid, the new film, just recently came out a couple of years ago, or this year, I think. It's been advertised for like 4 years, and I think it finally got released like this year or last year, whatever. I haven't seen Polaroid yet, but I heard that's exactly what the story is. It's basically just a glorified Goosebumps episode, which I'm cool with. As long as it's good, I want to see it at some point. I might talk about it at my other channel, Strange Michael. But Say Cheese and Die, for the most part, is very 1990s, but I really, really love it for that. I'm a big 90s fan because I was born in the 90s, of course. And I feel like it encaptures the feeling of Goosebumps, but it doesn't capture the feeling of that story. That story and that book of Say Cheese and Die is so extremely dark. I mean, extremely dark. And this episode doesn't come close to that. It has its moments there, here and there, like the car chase situation. Not the car chase, but the car scene, which another part of that car scene involving the older brother, Terry, is pretty awful in its acting. Terry just kind of walks up and is like, "Bruh, there was an accident, bruh." You know, he's an older kid too. You think he'd be able to pull it off at like the age of 19 playing like a 16-year-old, but no, he didn't. There are good moments in this. I think there's genuinely this really good fun to this episode that I really dug. Again, I wish it was kind of a two-parter, like Night of the Living Dummy 3 or Haunted Mask. I think it would have felt more developed and not as rushed as it kind of feels at the end game. A lot of Goosebumps episodes feel really rushed to be 20-minute adaptations of a 130-something page book a lot of the time. This episode does not feel entirely like a giant mess, but it is a little rushed, like I said. It seems like it's jumping from point to point to point in its plot. It feels like it's kind of rushing along a little bit. But for the most part, I really like it. I think it works very well. I think the music is fantastic here. Some of the editing choices are absolutely awful. There's one time where like Spidey shows up and he's talking to Greg and his voice like echoes for some reason, and then it just stops echoing, and then it like cuts in a way that it repeats what he said like 2 or 3 times in these different camera angles of his face and stuff. It's really dumb. But again, very 1990s for a kid's show, a kid's horror show on top of that, trying to be more scary. I think overall, when it comes to quality, I would say Are You Afraid of the Dark is probably the better show overall for quality. But when it comes to the interest, the nostalgia for people like myself, I only pretty much grew up on Goosebumps. Are You Afraid of the Dark scared me so bad I had to stop watching it when I was a certain age. And you'd think that I would have loved that more and embraced that more with how much I love horror the older I got. I grew up on horror, like the original Halloween from John Carpenter. I grew up on these things. I don't know why Are You Afraid of the Dark always freaked me out so badly, but it did. And Goosebumps got to me in certain ways too, like with the Haunted Mask episodes. And I don't know what the issue was with that, why that bothered me so much more than Goosebumps did. But I don't know, this is one of those episodes I think wouldn't have scared me as a kid, but it was really fun and kind of tense at times. One of my favorite things about this, by the way, is the little reference type of thing, you could call it sort of kind of a cameo, to the Tim Jacobus artwork for the original book. I thought that was such a cool, weird thing to do in the episode, just to show a little love to Tim Jacobus, the artist of the covers of the old 62 90s books. I thought that was pretty neat. There were some great moments in here. Again, the music is great. I really enjoyed this. I had a really good time watching Say Cheese and Die, but again, the book is 1,000 times better than the actual episode. It's not one of those things like with Haunted Mask or Not a Living Dummy 3 that I think are better episode-wise than they are compared to the book. It's just how it is, but this is one of the ones I think the book is way better, because the book doesn't pull punches, man. People can die in that. People can get horribly, or just absolutely decimated in the worst possible way. There's some really dark tension there, like kidnapping threats and all kinds of stuff in the actual book. Yeah, it's a lot more adult than people give it credit for, but this episode is fun. It's a good episode. I really dig it. I think I'm going to give it a higher rating than a lot of people think I would give it, but I dig it. I like it a lot. I think the camera's a little goofy, but it is Goosebumps, and they have to kind of make it fit in with that kind of universe, you know, a little bit. It's not really something normal, and I kind of accept it not being a normal camera for what this show was and how 1990s it is, because everything was made of plastic in the 90s, and this is what it looks like, that old big old clunky camera. Anyway, there's some really great moments in here. I really dig it a lot. I recommend it highly if you haven't seen the episode. If you want to read the book, you should read the book first. It's fantastic. I love it tremendously. If you've only seen the TV episode and you've never read the book, you should read the book. It's fantastic, like I said. If I had to rate Say Cheese and Die, the Season 1, Episode 15 episode of the Goosebumps TV show from the 1990s, I'd probably give this a 5 out of 5 stars. I really dig it. It's one of my favorite episodes now. I've only seen it, this is the second time I've ever seen it, and I really like it a lot. I know that there's a sequel episode, not immediately after this, but in like Season 3, that is based off the second book, sort of, kind of, and I remember it being a really bad episode. I don't know, I remember it being a really bad adaptation, an episode. I haven't read the book before, but I'm not really looking forward to seeing that next episode next week, or this week, or whenever I get around to it. But anyway, what are your thoughts on Say Cheese and Die, the episode, the book, all that stuff? What do you think about it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Put all your thoughts and comments down below. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this crazy little series called Goosebumps, and the little episodes like this that really stand out to me personally. Again, this might be a little bit of a higher rating at a 5 out of 5, but I really like it a lot. I think it has a lot of things going for it. There's a lot of nostalgia here, even though I didn't grow up on this episode. That really makes me love this even more, just because of the time that it came out and how it feels. The texture of the actual tone of the show just really makes me love it even more. I'm just a sap for the 1990s. I can't help it. But anyway, Say Cheese and Die. Put your thoughts and comments down below. Thank you for watching, guys. God bless you, and goodbye.